The richest and most desired man in the city lost his heart to the only black woman who didn't chase him, didn't flatter him, and wanted absolutely nothing from him. What happened next defied every expectation. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The city's streets buzzed with life, each evening bringing luxury cars that glided past upscale restaurants and neon-lit clubs. In this metropolis there was one man who reigned as an undisputed king. His name was Donovan Saint. Claire, heir to a century-old family fortune, rumored to own half the skyscrapers that rose against the skyline and desired by everyone with a heart that skipped a beat for wealth and influence. Women vied for his slightest attention. Men either envied him or worshipped the ground he walked on. Invitations to his galas were more coveted than political seats. Whenever Donovan appeared at a charity event or even at a fleeting art exhibit, the hush in the crowd spoke volumes of his power. But in that hush and admiration, Donovan sensed suffocation. He had grown accustomed to the shallow flattery, the fake smiles and glittering eyes that only sparkled at his bank account. All his life he'd seen people chase him like he was a prize to be won, not a person to be known. He'd been the center of a relentless orbit, with no genuine escape. One warm afternoon, when the sun bathed the tallest buildings in pale gold, Donovan Street, Claire did something that defied expectations. He slipped away from his corporate tower and instructed his driver to let him wander the older part of town on foot. He wanted air untainted by sycophants. There, the pavement was cracked. Local vendors sold fruit from stands on every corner, and the air smelled of roasted peanuts and fresh bread. He strolled past vibrant murals painted on aging brick walls, his polished leather shoes clicking against the worn sidewalk. That was when he saw her. Danica Rains. She was busy arranging flowers outside a modest shop that bore the name Rains and Blooms. A swirl of sweet fragrance hung in the air, and lively music played from a small radio by the entrance. Donovan's eyes caught on Danica's grace before he even registered the lovely floral arrangements she worked on. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, a small apron dusted with pollen around her waist, and her hair gathered neatly, accentuating the striking warmth of her brown skin. She was beautiful, but not in the curated, glossy way that the people around him often tried to be. She had a glow that felt genuine, a quiet self-assurance. If any other billionaire had walked by, you would expect a moment of star-struck awe. You'd expect a "Good afternoon, Mr. St. Clair, I know exactly who you are," followed by a beaming smile or flirtatious glance. But instead, when Donovan paused by the shop to observe her craft, Danica glanced up only briefly, gave a courteous nod and turned back to her flowers. "Would you like to buy a bouquet?" she asked politely. There was no trace of desperation or attempt at flattery. She didn't cling to him. She didn't even seem impressed by his presence. She was just polite and professional, as if he were any other passerby. Donovan almost stuttered. For the first time in his memory, he found himself unprepared. He coughed softly and managed, "Actually, I was just admiring the flowers. They look lovely." "Thank you," Danica answered, not looking up again. She was arranging bright sunflowers around soft lilies. The combination was striking yet harmonious, just like her presence. "Do you own this place?" Donovan ventured. She glanced up, her eyes unwavering yet not impolite. "Yes, it was my grandmother's. Now it's mine. We've had this business for decades. Is there a particular bouquet I can help you with?" He wondered if she truly did not recognize him or if she simply did not care. Her manner stayed perfectly cordial, no hint of intimidation or worship. "I'm Donovan," he said, extending his hand. "That's nice," she responded, looking at his outstretched hand for a second before gently placing a stem of baby's breath into the bouquet. She did not volunteer her own name, nor did she linger on his handshake. She was calm, like a gentle summer breeze. Donovan felt an unexpected twinge in his chest. He was used to people rushing to share their names, brandishing their admiration, their phone numbers, or their entire life stories the second they realized who he was. Instead, Danica said, "If you need something for a special occasion, I can whip something up. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll have to excuse me. I'm late with some of my orders." "It's fine," Donovan replied, swallowing a sudden dryness in his throat. "I should let you get back to work." She nodded once more, already returning to her flowers. Donovan left the store feeling an inexplicable mixture of curiosity and longing swirling in his chest. He continued down the street, but he couldn't resist glancing back at least once. Danica was still working, focusing on trimming stems and selecting ribbons, entirely unaware, or simply uninterested, that the wealthiest man in the city had just been in her shop. That evening, Donovan returned to his penthouse suite overlooking the heart of the city. The skyline shimmered with thousands of lights, and the reflection of modern architecture glistened on glass windows, reminding him of his empire. But the memory that refused to fade wasn't of the usual glamour. It was of a humble flower shop and a woman who offered neither compliments nor starry-eyed wonder. There was a warmth in her voice that was real, and it tugged at him in a way no amount of wealth ever had. His personal assistant, Sophia, was already at his penthouse to finalize details for an upcoming charity ball. "Mr. St. Clair, we have the list of sponsors who will attend. Would you like to approve the final draft?" "Sure," he answered absent-mindedly, scanning the page. Customarily, Donovan would add names to his VIP section, celebrities, politicians, or brand ambassadors who always sought his favor. This time his eyes roamed over the typed words, but his mind drifted back to Danica's face, the quiet dignity in her posture, her voice that never stumbled to impress him. Sophia cleared her throat politely. "Is everything okay, sir?" "Yes." He forced himself to focus. "Everything's fine. Let's keep it as is, but add a request for more variety in the floral centerpieces at the event." He rarely obsessed about decor, but there was a fleeting thought of how Danica's taste in flower arrangements might lend a sense of vibrant authenticity to the otherwise predictable ball. Yet he wondered if it was wise or even fair to drag her into the center of a glitzy carnival that she seemed to have no interest in. Meanwhile, the rumor mill at Donovan's main office building spun with unstoppable fervor. Employees had already whispered that the boss had left midday and spent a suspiciously long time in the old district. Conjectures about a new business venture or philanthropic project spread like wildfire on internal chat groups. Donovan glimpsed some of those messages on his phone. He only chuckled at how none of them guessed the truth, that his heart had been captured by a moment of genuine humanity he hadn't felt in ages. Night fell slowly. From his balcony, Donovan watched the city's lights form a sparkling tapestry. Usually he'd unwind with a glass of expensive scotch, letting the hush of the night soothe him. But now, he felt restless. He scrolled through social media, half hoping to see if Danica or her shop had any online presence. That was a foreign sensation. Him, the man who could have nearly anything he wanted, uncertain and almost shy about making contact. A glance at the time told him it was after 10 p.m. The distinctive chime of his phone startled him. An incoming call from an unknown number. Might be one of those social climbers or a random business pitch. He hesitated, then answered. "Is this Donovan Street?" "Claire?" said a voice, female but not Danica's. "Yes. May I ask who's calling?" "It's Ramona, Danica's cousin. I handle some of her deliveries." His pulse quickened at the mere mention of Danica's name. Yes, Ms. Ramona. How can I help you?" "Danica found a jacket you left at her shop earlier," Ramona lied smoothly, though Donovan instantly knew it couldn't be true. He hadn't left any jacket behind. "She said if it's yours to come by tomorrow and pick it up. That's it." Then the call ended abruptly, leaving him perplexed. Jacket or not, it was a sign. She was either returning an imaginary item to lure him in, or she had no idea that her cousin had called. But the prospect of returning to the shop seeing Donica again made his heart pound. He was thrilled and strangely anxious, two sensations he rarely felt. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "So, she's going to see me again, whether she wants to or not," he murmured to himself, a wry smile forming. Because if Donica truly wanted absolutely nothing from him, why would her cousin call? Uncertainty teased him, and he found that for the first time in a long while, he couldn't predict the next move. He had soared in business negotiations, winning hearts and minds as easily as he signed checks. But with Donica, he was unsure if the next day would bring him a step closer to her mysterious world, or push him away entirely. The following morning, Donovan rose earlier than usual. He pressed through his pre-work routine, jog, shower, quick glance at emails, while a persistent undercurrent of anticipation pulled his thoughts back to that phone call. A jacket he supposedly forgot? No, he hadn't worn one yesterday, yet he dressed with more care than he'd admit, selecting a casual but refined outfit that would blend with Old Town's low-key vibe. Gone was the tailored suit and tie. In its place, a simple navy polo and chinos, his watch the only detail that silently boasted his status. He arrived at Rains and Blooms just as the sun crested the rooftops. The store's painted sign, faded but charming, seemed to greet him warmly, like a longtime neighbor. Through the glass, he spotted Donica. She stood behind a display of vibrant peonies, deep in concentration, tying ribbons around stems. Donovan inhaled before pushing the door open, bracing himself for another brush with her cool poise. A small bell tinkled at his entrance. Donica looked up, recognized him, and paused with the slightest lift of her eyebrow. Still no wide smile or bright greeting. "Hello," she said in a neutral tone. "I see you found your way back." Donovan cleared his throat, stepping closer. "Yes, your cousin Ramona said there was a jacket I might have left here." Her left brow rose a fraction higher, and her hands busied themselves adjusting the ribbons. "A jacket," she repeated, voice calm. "Could you describe it for me?" He tried not to sound flustered. "Well, I must admit I was confused by the call. I didn't leave a jacket behind," he confessed softly. "But I got the feeling maybe your cousin just wanted me to come here?" Donica finally met his gaze fully. For a moment, Donovan glimpsed something flicker behind her eyes. Curiosity or mild annoyance? He couldn't tell. "Ramona likes to do things her own way," Donica murmured. "Apologies if that wasted your time." Her quiet composure threw him off balance again, so Donovan forced an easy smile. "No apology needed. I'm happy to be here. Actually, I've wanted to buy some flowers today." He hoped that wouldn't come off as contrived. "I'm hosting a small lunch for a few associates tomorrow, and I'd like something unique for a centerpiece." She considered him carefully, then nodded. "We have a fresh order of burgundy carnations and soft lisianthus that might work well together. Or if you're looking for something more dramatic, the new stargazer lilies are also an option. What's the venue like?" Donovan explained that the lunch would happen in an understated courtyard. Something that strikes a balance, elegant but not showy, simple. Real. Her expression softened just a bit. "I have some ideas," she said, turning to gather a selection of flowers from buckets. Her movements were brisk but graceful, each stem carefully chosen. Donovan watched her skillful hands more than the blooms themselves, admiring how gentle yet confident she was, like an artist with a brush. In that moment, he realized how rare it felt for him to be so captivated by someone else's craft. She set the flowers on the counter. "I can arrange a mid-sized centerpiece in muted tones, accented with subtle pops of color. Should be ready by tomorrow morning if that suits your schedule?" "That's perfect. Thank you," he hesitated. "I can pay now or whenever you pick it up is fine," she replied. She reached for a small order pad, scribbled the details, then tore the paper and handed it to him. "Just so we keep track." As he took the slip, his fingertips brushed hers, and an electric jolt spiked in his chest. She withdrew her hand almost instantly, her gaze flicking away. Donovan cleared his throat again, reminding himself not to pry. "So, Ramona, does she work here often?" "Mostly deliveries. She's my cousin on my father's side," Danica responded. "She handles the van when I'm short on time. She can be impulsive, which you've seen." He nodded, not sure how to smoothly shift the topic to Danica herself. "And you grew up around flowers? This shop was your grandmother's, right?" She nodded, a gentle smile drifting onto her lips at the mention of her grandmother. "I was 5 when I started helping her water the plants. I'd run around and pick daisies, clumsily tie them into a bundle, then pretend I was the florist. My grandmother would laugh and put them in a vase, proudly calling them my arrangements." There was a warmth in her eyes now, as if recalling a bright memory. Donovan seized the moment, eager to see her open up. "She must have been proud that you carried on her legacy." Danica placed a hand lightly on the countertop, the memory causing her to exhale. "She passed away last year. It was a blow. But yes, she was proud. She's the reason I love this work so much." His voice softened instinctively. "I'm sorry for your loss." She acknowledged his sympathy with a brief nod, but no further detail. Letting the subject settle, Donovan ventured a step toward the display. "You have some amazing arrangements," he said with sincerity. "I've only ever seen florals treated as ornaments, accents at big events. Here, I don't know. It's like each bouquet has a personality." He caught the tiniest quirk at the edge of her mouth, a near smile. "I try. Flowers carry emotions, hope, celebration, comfort, even heartbreak. Every color, every shape matters." She paused, returning to that earlier poise. "Anyway, your arrangement will be ready by 10 tomorrow morning." Donovan was tempted to linger, but the intensity of her directness kept him from overstepping. With a courteous dip of his head, he said, "Then I'll be here by 10. He walked out, the bell chiming behind him. Exiting into the bright morning sun, Donovan was struck with the realization that Danica never asked for his last name, or seemed to care. He'd introduced himself as Donovan, nothing more, and she let that stand. A sense of both relief and surprise washed over him. He'd never found it so easy to talk with someone who demanded so little. Word spreads rapidly when it's about Donovan Street. Claire, especially among the social elite. That evening, a hush of speculation settled around certain dinner parties. Donovan skipping after-hours business mixers or ignoring exclusive invitations was unusual. Rumors floated that a mystery woman had captured his attention. The hush was subtle but certain, like the rustle of fabric behind closed doors. Sophia, Donovan's assistant, picked up on this shift immediately. She'd known him long enough to sense when something tugged at his focus. Scheduling a last-minute meeting with him that night, Sophia delicately navigated the conversation. "Sir, I've noted you canceled your usual dinner with the city officials. Anything you'd like me to reschedule?" "No, it's fine," he said simply, scanning a file. "We'll handle them next week. I've got different priorities right now." Sophia eyed him carefully. "Of course. Priorities indeed. I noticed you've placed an order for a custom floral arrangement. That's new." Donovan gave a non-committal shrug, trying to appear indifferent. "Just wanted something special for a small lunch." His assistant nodded slowly, clearly unconvinced that it was merely a random impulse. "Well, I'll note that you'll be tied up tomorrow morning. At 10, yes?" He caught her meaningful tone and smiled faintly. "Yes, Sophia. Thank you." Meanwhile, across town, Ramona and Danica's conversation took a heated turn. Ramona had just finished running deliveries for the day and now confronted Danica near the shop's back entrance. "Did you see him? You see Donovan come back?" Her voice teemed with excitement. "What did he say? He's obviously sweet on you, right?" Danica rolled her eyes, exasperated. "Ramona, You lied to him about a jacket. You practically pushed him into the shop. Don't do that again." Ramona grinned impishly. "Girl, sometimes you need a little push for romance to happen. The man is dreamy and loaded, and you—" She squeezed Danica's shoulders as if to pry a confession out. "Why aren't you letting yourself enjoy this?" Danica shook her head. "Because I don't chase men. You know that. Besides, guys like him—" She let out a breath. "I can't deal with that world." Ramona's grin softened. She knew her cousin's fears. Knew Danica's father had taught her to be wary of men with easy charm or grand promises. "Don't shut the door just yet. You never know who might be real underneath the fancy exterior." Danica sighed. "Look, if he wants flowers, I'll sell him flowers, but nothing else, okay?" She locked eyes with Ramona. "No more stunts." Ramona shrugged. "Sure, no more stunts. Unless you two still need a little nudge," she teased, ducking away before Danica could protest further. Alone in the quiet alley, Danica felt her heart flutter at the memory of Donovan's gentle voice, his fascination with the simplest details. She'd refused to let it sway her, but something about him had stirred a chord. She told herself it was just curiosity. She had no intention of entertaining fantasies about a man like Donovan Saint. Claire, if indeed that was his full name. She suspected he was from wealth, but she'd lived long enough to see how some people used money and power like weapons or illusions. Still, for someone used to flattery, Donovan had seemed refreshingly open. Real, even. Danica brushed off the thought. She had more pressing concerns, like paying her rent, managing her supply orders, ensuring the bank didn't crush her under the weight of the shop's old debts. No matter how kind Donovan's gaze, her life was about survival, not daydreams. The next day, at exactly 10, Donovan returned. True to her word, Danica had prepared a centerpiece so lovely that even the other patrons in the shop paused to admire it. She'd combined neutral flowers, ivory roses, palest carnations, cream hydrangeas, with small bursts of plum blossoms and eucalyptus sprigs, soft, refined, with subtle drama. "It's exquisite," Donovan murmured, leaning in to catch the floral scent. "Better than anything I expected." Danica acknowledged his praise with a small, modest nod. "Thank you. Glad you like it." He glanced around, noticing that a couple of customers queued behind him, waiting to be served. "I'll let you get back to work," he said quietly. "But would you have a moment later, maybe after you close?" A flicker of surprise crossed her face. A moment for what? He hesitated, measuring his words. "To talk. Maybe over coffee or just a walk down the street. I'd like to learn more about your shop, your history here. No agenda, just curious." Her eyes narrowed slightly, as though she wasn't sure what to make of the invitation. "I have errands after closing. Might not have time." "Understood," he replied gently, accepting her hesitation. Yet there was a glint of determination in his own eyes. "If you change your mind, I'll be at that cafe on the corner around 6. If not, no worries." With that, he handed over his payment, declining any change, and lifted the floral arrangement carefully into his arms. Outside, a discreet town car idled. Donovan settled the centerpiece in the back seat and gave a brief instruction to his driver to head to the lunch venue. Inside the shop, Danica watched him leave, weighed down by an unfamiliar mixture of suspicion and curiosity. Why was he so persistent? And why, despite all logic, did she feel a prickle of interest at the idea of meeting him outside her safe haven of flowers? She tried to shake it off and turned her attention to the next customer. But even as she smiled and assisted them, a part of her kept replaying Donovan's soft invitation in her mind, wondering if she really was too busy, or simply too afraid to accept. Danica had spent the afternoon dodging the thought of Donovan's invitation. Each time she reached for a rose or snipped the stem of a daisy, her mind wandered back to his soft-spoken offer, a casual walk or a simple coffee on the corner. Why did the idea of meeting him make her heart flutter one moment and her guard slam down the next? The shop was almost empty now, save for a single elderly customer carefully selecting a potted orchid. Afternoon light slanted through the window, catching dust motes in a warm haze. Behind the counter, Danica tidied the workspace, storing away scattered ribbons and reorganizing her supply of gift cards. It was 5:30 p.m., close to shutting time. The question echoed again in her head. Go or don't go? Ramona's cheerful voice sliced into her thoughts. Come on, cuz. Just do it. She leaned against the doorway that separated the shop from the small back office. The man personally said he'd be at the cafe at 6, right? He's probably halfway ordering a cappuccino by now, tapping his foot, thinking you'll stand him up. Danica kept her eyes on a stack of receipts she was counting. You promised me no more stunts, Ramona. Girl, this isn't a stunt. I'm just stating facts. He's a grown man stepping out of his comfort zone to see if you'd share your time. What's the harm in giving him a few minutes? He's different, Danica admitted quietly. But that doesn't mean I want to waltz into something complicated. Ramona's face softened. She moved closer, setting a gentle hand on Danica's shoulder. You've been running everything on your own for months now. The shop, the old debts, taking care of people's weddings and heartbreak flowers day in and day out. When's the last time you even paused for yourself? Danica's chest felt tight. She allowed her cousin's words to sink in. Indeed, it had been a long time since she'd done anything purely for herself, unconnected to the shop or her customers. Okay, she murmured at last, almost surprising herself. I'll go, but I'm not promising anything beyond a polite conversation. The minute I smell nonsense, I'm out the door. Ramona's grin erupted. Yes, that's all I wanted to hear. Before Danica could change her mind, she finished locking up the cash register and took off her stained apron. She grabbed her purse from a hook on the wall, fingers trembling slightly. Then, with a last glance at Ramona, she stepped outside. The late afternoon sun cast an orange glow over the quiet street, and she inhaled the crisp air to steady herself. The cafe Donovan mentioned was just around the corner. Located beneath an old brick building, it boasted a few small tables scattered on a sidewalk patio. Strings of light bulbs crisscrossed overhead, unlit at the moment, but promising a warm ambiance once darkness fell. Danica slowed her pace as she caught sight of Donovan seated at a table outside. He hadn't seen her yet. He was checking his phone absently. A single coffee cup sat untouched on the table, and there was a slight downward tilt to his mouth as though he suspected she wasn't coming. The scene tugged at her unexpectedly. This was a man used to private drivers, lavish parties, and constant attention, waiting patiently for someone who offered him none of those things. Clearing her throat, Danica stepped forward. You're going to let that coffee get cold, she teased gently. Donovan's head snapped up. Relief lit his eyes, followed by a quiet warmth. I was worried you might not show, he confessed, standing in a small gesture of courtesy. But I'm glad you did. She slid into the metal chair across from him, ignoring how her pulse seemed to tap a quicker rhythm now that they were face to face. So, here I am, she said lightly, though I admit I'm not entirely sure why. Donovan sat again, resting his hands on the edge of the table. I told you, I wanted to talk, properly, not in your shop where you're working, and not in my world where everything is complicated. He glanced at the passers-by. For once, I'd like to be just Donovan. She absorbed that, fiddling with a napkin. And what does just Donovan want to know? He smiled, a tinge of bashfulness beneath it. Everything you might be willing to share about yourself. How you started Rains and Blooms. How you learned to create arrangements that feel like they have life instead of just color. She gave him a level look, half amused. That's a big question. You sure you want me to talk your ear off about horticulture and small business struggles? His answer was immediate and earnest. I'm all ears. The sincerity in his voice nudged her reservations aside, at least for the moment. Taking a breath, Danica told him about her grandmother's devotion to healing through flowers, how each bloom was chosen not just for appearance but for a specific emotion or memory. She mentioned her father's gentle guidance in business matters before he passed, leaving her to juggle the responsibilities alone. She even admitted that the shop was heavily in debt, courtesy of old loans and expansions that never fully recouped costs. Through every word, Donovan listened without interrupting, asking only small clarifying questions. Unlike others who offered unsolicited advice or shallow pity, he seemed genuinely focused on hearing her story. At times, a flicker of admiration dawned in his gaze, as if he'd never truly understood the weight on a florist's shoulders. While Danica spoke, a breeze ruffled her loose strands of hair. She realized minutes had passed and she'd hardly let him speak. "Oh gosh, I'm sorry," she said, leaning back. "I've been rambling. Why don't you tell me about you?" A wry smile shaped his mouth. "Me? It's not as interesting. I grew up in a family with resources. My father made certain I understood business from a young age. I attended the best schools, had the best mentors." A pause, then a slight lowering of his voice. "People think it must be glamorous, but I've seen a lot of ugliness come with that money. I guess that's why I needed a break the other day. I wanted to see life where people aren't chasing me for favors or connections." Danica tilted her head, intrigued by his candor. "So you walked into the old district and my shop because you were looking for something real?" "Yes," he exhaled, a faint laugh at how direct that sounded. "I guess so. And you, Danica? You didn't try to flatter me or get anything from me?" It was refreshing. She studied him with measured calm. "You might find that some of us don't have time for flattery. We're too busy hustling to survive." Donovan's nod was solemn. "I respect that." Silence fell for a moment, comfortable in an odd way. Eventually, he gestured to the cafe door. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Or maybe an iced tea?" "Sure," she replied. "An iced tea would be nice." He left the table briefly, disappearing inside. Danica found herself breathing easier once he was gone, just enough time to think. Her boundaries felt shaky around him. Nothing about him was typical of a cold elitist. Instead, the man who'd come seeking something real had an earnest humility she hadn't expected. When Donovan returned with her tea, he also carried a slice of lemon cake on a small dish. "I wasn't sure if you like sweets, but this is the cafe's specialty." Danica's lips curved. "Thank you." She took a measured sip of her drink, the coolness soothing the dryness in her throat. "So, Donovan, you said you handle big business. I imagine you're used to lavish gatherings and grand philanthropic events. Why bother with me, a simple florist who might never leave this neighborhood?" He set his coffee down, leaning in as though to ensure she heard his next words above the hush of passers-by. "Because I'm tired of shallow acquaintances and orchestrated social scenes, and I'm tired of not feeling seen." He looked directly at her, sincerity bright in his eyes. "With you, I'm not some prize. I can be flawed, a little uncertain. That's a relief, more than I can say." A flicker of empathy tugged at her chest. She understood in her own way what it meant to feel unseen, but the possibility of bridging two wildly different worlds? That still seemed daunting. "You know," she said slowly, "people like you come and go around here, slumming it for a day or two before they return to the glass towers. They want a taste of normalcy, then they vanish." Donovan winced, acknowledging the truth of that pattern. "I'm not playing tourist," he said firmly. He paused, grappling with words. "I can't promise I won't be busy in that glass tower, but I'd like to spend more time here, if you'll let me." She hesitated, letting the silence speak for her doubts. Finally, she released a soft breath. "Look, I appreciate your honesty. It's just, I have to protect myself, Donovan. I don't know if you can truly understand what it feels like to be, well, overshadowed by someone's wealth. He nodded, drawing a circle on the table's surface with his fingertip. I can't claim to know exactly what it's like, but if you gave me the chance, I'd hope to show you that money doesn't define me. She studied him, the last glow of sunset reflected in his eyes. For a fleeting second, all of downtown seemed to pause. The hiss of an espresso machine inside, the hum of a bus passing by, the murmur of strangers. She realized she wanted to believe him. "What if I say yes?" she murmured. "What does that even look like?" He smiled. "For now, maybe it means a few more cups of coffee when your schedule allows. Or even letting me help at your shop if you ever need an extra hand." Seeing her brows lift in incredulity, he chuckled. "I'm serious. You said you're short-staffed and juggling deliveries. I'm no floral expert, but I can carry boxes." Danica felt the corners of her mouth tug upward in a genuine grin. "I can't imagine, Donovan. Sorry, you never gave me a last name. Unloading flower crates." He matched her grin, though she noted how carefully he sidestepped the mention of his name. "Then let's just keep it as Donovan. And yes, I can handle crates, if that's what it takes to earn a little trust." She laughed softly, sipping her tea. "All right, I guess you can start by walking me home. It's not far." His entire face brightened. "I'd be honored." They finished their drinks, Danica savoring the sweet tang of lemon and sugar, Donovan draining his cold coffee. As they stood, he insisted on taking the small plates and cups back to the cafe counter, a gesture she appreciated more than she expected. Then, side by side, they set off on the sidewalk that wound between old storefronts and modest apartments. He fell into step with her easily, offering the occasional wave to local vendors who recognized her from the shop. When they reached her building, a quaint 3-story with a chipped green door, Danica paused. "So, thanks for the iced tea. And the conversation." Donovan dipped his head in acknowledgement, fighting the urge to look overly eager. "Thank you for accepting my invitation. I'll see you around." She bobbed her head once, a shy warmth fluttering in her stomach. "Yeah, around." With a subdued smile, she turned, fished her keys from her purse and disappeared through the doorway. As the latch clicked behind her, she leaned against the door's worn frame. Her heart pounded like a slow, steady drum. She hadn't felt like this she didn't even recall. It was refreshing and terrifying all at once. Outside, Donovan stood on the stoop for a lingering moment. A sense of elation, calm and confusion all wove together. He exhaled into the hush of the growing evening and strolled back to his waiting car parked down the block. Though the day had ended, something about it felt like a new beginning, one neither of them had quite expected. Donovan spent the following week balancing the demands of his business empire with a new, unusual pull back to the shop in Old Town. It felt strange to juggle conference calls with major investors, then slip away in the late afternoon to help Danica unload a van of fresh flowers. Yet every time he stepped onto that worn sidewalk, every time he inhaled the comforting scent of lilies and sunflowers, a part of him exhaled the stress of board meetings and endless PR events. He discovered that Danica was not easily impressed. If anything, the more he tried to show her he was a real person beneath the wealth, the more she pushed back, testing his sincerity. She rarely asked him about his world. Their chats revolved around flowers, her grandmother's stories, the customers who strolled into the shop. Donovan found it endearing and refreshing that the typical pomp of his life barely made a cameo in hers. One sunny Thursday, Donovan arrived mid-afternoon, still dressed in a crisp shirt and slacks from a corporate gathering he couldn't escape. He slipped inside rains and blooms with as little fanfare as a man like him could manage. Danica stood at the counter, arranging bold red roses into a get-well bouquet. Robin's egg-blue ribbons trailed from her hands, half-tied. She glanced up when he entered, a small quirk at the corners of her mouth hinting at welcome. "You're early. I thought you'd come by after 5, she said, her tone easy. He managed a half-smile. Got through my meeting quicker than expected. Thought maybe you'd need a hand before closing." Her eyes traveled over his expensive dress shirt, almost making him self-conscious. "You sure you want to risk wrinkling that fancy ensemble by lifting crates?" He shrugged, lightly resting his hands on the counter. "It's just a shirt." That answer made her laugh under her breath, an unguarded, melodic sound he always found himself wanting to hear more of. A voice emerged from the back. "He here already?" Ramona stepped in, carrying a small box of new vases. Seeing Donovan, she raised her eyebrows. "Wow, those clothes! Didn't you say your big business world was crazy today?" Donovan lifted a brow at Danica's cousin. She'd become something of a friend, or at least an enthusiastic observer, since that first lost jacket stunt. "I survived the craziness. Now I'm here to see if you have anything that needs delivering." Ramona set the box down. "Well, actually, we do have 2 drop-offs to a nearby wedding chapel. Small ceremony tomorrow morning. Danica said she could handle them alone, but we could take advantage of your free muscles." She grinned. Danica gave a light roll of her eyes at Ramona's unsubtle hint. "She's exaggerating. I can manage fine. But if you're offering, sure, let me write down the addresses." They worked for the next hour in a comfortable rhythm. Donovan carefully loaded the van with white hydrangeas, roses, and baby's breath for the wedding arch, while Danica gathered smaller centerpieces. Ramona handled the shop in the meantime. In between carrying armfuls of flowers, Donovan and Danica exchanged small talk. "You look tired," she remarked at one point, resting her elbow on the van's edge as he lifted a box. He inhaled, a sweat beading on his brow from the unseasonable warmth. "It's been a stretch of long nights. Business issues piling up." He stopped to wipe his forehead. "But this helps me clear my head." Danica studied him as though searching for any trace of insincerity. Finally, she exhaled with a nod. "Let's do the deliveries. Then maybe we can grab a quick bite?" He blinked, pleasantly caught off guard. "I'd love that." She hopped into the driver's seat before he could protest, a small grin on her face. "I'm already behind schedule. Climb in." He settled into the passenger side, inhaling the mixed fragrance of fresh blooms crammed in the back. There was no plush leather interior here, no tinted windows, just the slight clank of the old van's engine and the hum of city traffic beyond. Danica navigated the roads with a mixture of caution and confidence, weaving through narrow streets where old brick buildings loomed close. As they drove, Donovan asked about her day, and she recounted a meltdown from a bride who changed her color theme at the last minute, forcing Danica to scramble for the right flowers. He listened intently, amazed at the complexities of a simple florist business. They arrived at the wedding chapel, an airy white building with rose bushes planted by the entrance. The staff welcomed Danica with warmth, clearly on good terms with her. As she directed Donovan in unloading the van, he noticed how her demeanor changed in front of clients, professional, steady, and reassuring. "You've got a knack for dealing with nervous brides," he commented softly, transferring a vase carefully. Danica's mouth curved in a faint smirk. "If you saw how many anxious phone calls I get in a week, you'd think I was a therapist, not a florist." She positioned a large arrangement of hydrangeas near the chapel's door, then turned to him, satisfied. "All right, that should do it. Let's head out." They hopped back in the van. Donovan's phone began to buzz, and he glimpsed the caller ID, Sophia. He winced. "I should probably take this." Danica nodded, focusing on driving while he answered. From the one-sided conversation, she gathered something about an urgent project, possibly an investment deal, all wrapped in coded formal language. "All right, yes, proceed with the new terms," Donovan said. "And Sophia, try to push the next meeting to tomorrow afternoon. I'm occupied at the moment." A quick, polite sign-off followed. He slipped the phone back into his pocket with a tight sigh. "Sorry." "No need to apologize," she replied, though there was a gentle question in her tone. He thought for a moment, then admitted quietly, "I run a large investment firm, my family's company, but I took over some years back. Sophia is my personal assistant, orchestrating half of my life these days." Danica gave a small nod, as if that piece of the puzzle confirmed the scale of his responsibilities. "Sounds intense. Does she panic if you're out of the loop for too long?" He gave a wry smile. "Something like that. We're finalizing a major deal. It's complicated. At times, I wish I could just tell everyone to wait so I can spend more time here. But it's not that simple." She tightened her grip on the steering wheel, silent for a beat. "I get it. I mean, not the billions at stake, but the pressure of too much to handle. Sometimes you can't just walk away." Her words clicked with his own thoughts, that sense of being trapped by obligations. Exactly. They let the silence linger, filled by the rumble of the engine and occasional honks from nearby cars. Finally, Danica parked near a small diner that perched at the corner of a quaint block. Its sign flashed a broken neon DIN-R, the E long gone. "Best burgers in this neighborhood," she said. "You up for it?" Donovan smiled, relieved she was sharing another slice of her world. "Definitely." They found a booth by a window. The menu was short and unpretentious, the staff friendly. Danica ordered her favorite, the classic cheeseburger with extra pickles, while Donovan opted for the same, trusting her recommendation. "Bet you're used to five-star restaurants," she teased after the waitress left. "Your taste buds might reject our greasy spoon." He laughed. "You'd be surprised how bland fancy places can be. Besides, I want the real deal." She shook her head with a small grin. "You keep saying that. Real, authentic, normal. I guess I get it. It's like we all crave something different from our routines." Donovan's gaze lingered on her. "You think mine is just a routine? I don't deny I have advantages, but sometimes money feels like a prison. Hard to know who's genuine." She sipped from the glass of water the waitress brought over. "I can't imagine. Everyone's always wanting something from you, I bet." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I could handle the demands when it was purely business. But then it followed me into my personal life. Dating became a chore of fending off gold diggers or people more enamored with my wallet than me. I started building walls I didn't even realize. Until... He hesitated, then admitted, "Until I found myself in your shop, half wishing you'd treat me like some normal guy. Just Donovan." Danica studied him across the table. In the flickering fluorescent light, he looked more vulnerable than ever, as though he desperately needed what he claimed. She softened. "Well, you've got that here. But let's not pretend it's all easy. I'm juggling my own share of burdens, and letting someone new into my life, especially from a different world, doesn't come without worries." Their burgers arrived, hot and fragrant, momentarily distracting them. For a few minutes, they lost themselves in the simple pleasure of good food, crunchy fries, and cold soda. Danica was amused to see Donovan devour his burger with the appetite of a man who rarely ate fast food. "So good," he mumbled around a bite, drawing a genuine laugh from her. They lingered even after they finished eating, sipping soda and talking about lighter topics, funny wedding flower mishaps, Donovan's childhood memories of sneaking out of piano lessons to explore his grandfather's greenhouse, Ramona's comedic, dramatic streak. When they finally stepped back onto the sidewalk, dusk had begun to spread across the sky, painting it in streaks of purple and gold. Danica stretched her arms over her head, letting out a contented sigh. "I forgot how nice it is to just slow down. Normally I'd be checking email or scheduling tomorrow's deliveries right now." Donovan matched her pace as they walked toward the van. "Same for me, except multiply the madness. But spending time like this? I didn't know how much I needed it." She felt a knot of warmth forming in her chest, but tried to downplay it. "Well, don't get used to slacking off," she teased. "We still need to drop back at the shop before closing." He grinned. "Yes, ma'am." Their ride back was quieter, though a sense of shared understanding filled the silence. Danica parked at the curb in front of Rains and Blooms, shifting the van into neutral. Ramona had already pulled down the shutters partway, indicating the shop was nearly closed. Donovan hopped out, offering a hand to help Danica down from the driver's seat. She accepted with a slight smile, ignoring the flutter in her stomach when her palm met his. "Thanks for your help," she said, stepping onto the pavement. "And for dinner." He watched her face, noting the glow of the setting sun as it caught in her hair. "Thank you for letting me see more of your day. It's humbling." She shook her head gently. "I'm no saint, Donovan. My business is tiny compared to your deals. But I work hard, and I can't afford to lose footing." He searched her gaze. "I understand. If it ever feels like I'm complicating your life, just tell me. I don't want to be another burden." She lowered her eyes for a moment. "I'm not sure what we are right now, friends or something else, but I do know I don't mind having you around." Her words sparked a genuine, warm smile across his features. "Likewise." They lingered on the sidewalk under the dim glow of a nearby street lamp, wanting to prolong the moment. Finally, Danica tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'd better check on Ramona. Tomorrow's another early start." He stepped aside, nodding. "Right. Good night, then." Before she could lose her nerve, Danica took a step forward and placed a light, brief kiss on his cheek. "Good night." She turned on her heel and ducked into the shop, leaving him standing there, a bit astonished and visibly pleased. The warmth of her lips against his cheek remained like a soft imprint, stirring a delicate thrill that no boardroom victory had ever matched. "Night," he whispered to the closed door, heart thumping like a teenager's. Above him, the city sky was faintly dotted with stars, rare for this urban sprawl. He thought about how stars managed to shine despite all the ambient light that tried to dim them. In a quiet parallel, he recognized that Danica and the uncomplicated life she lived was becoming a radiant point in his world, one worth guarding no matter how the glare of his other life might threaten to overshadow it. The next few days dawned with a newfound sense of promise, and, for both Danica and Donovan, a growing recognition that they were dipping into unfamiliar waters. It was remarkable how quickly a routine formed. Donovan would handle his calls and conferences through the early afternoon, then slip free, if only for a few hours, to deliver flowers, stock new shipments, or simply linger among the sweet perfume of roses and snapdragons in Danica's shop. But beneath the gentle flutter of this closeness, a storm brewed on the horizon. Like waves gathering strength before they crash, the pressure from Donovan's corporate world was starting to swell, and the tension with it. On a clear Wednesday morning, Danica noticed Donovan's distraction the moment he stepped inside Rains and Blooms. Dressed in a tailored navy suit today rather than the casual attire she'd grown used to, he offered a warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You look official," she teased, lightly tapping the lapel of his jacket. "Meetings?" He nodded, casting a glance around the quiet shop. "A major shareholders gathering in an hour. I wanted to see you first." He paused, his gaze brushing over the flowers before returning to her. "I can't stay long." She heard the tension in his voice, a tautness that hadn't been there the day before. "Everything okay?" He opened his mouth to answer, but the bell above the entrance jingled sharply, cutting him off. One of Danica's regulars entered with a hurried wave, apologizing as she rushed to find a last-minute bouquet. The interruption broke the moment. Danica pulled away to assist the customer, glancing back at Donovan with a half-apologetic smile. He only nodded in understanding. A few minutes later, once the patron left with flowers in tow, Danica returned to find Donovan checking his phone with a grim expression. The tension from earlier was even more obvious. "What's going on?" she asked quietly. He looked up, exhaled. "I'm sorry. My father's been asking questions." Lots of them about what I'm doing, why I keep adjusting my schedule. He's worried I'm neglecting some big negotiations we have lined up, and on top of that, there's an investor who's hearing rumors about me, wandering the old district a lot. He shook his head, pocketing his phone. It's complicated. Danica frowned. I don't understand. Wandering the old district is suddenly a scandal? He managed a soft laugh. For them, yes. My life, or at least my public image, has always been curated. Where I go, who I'm seen with, it's all measured. Investors get spooked if I deviate from that sanitized brand. They think it means I'm losing focus, losing control. Because you're not living inside their neat little box, Danica said, crossing her arms. That's ridiculous. His sigh was heavy with frustration. Ridiculous or not, these people pour millions into our ventures. If they think I'm unpredictable, they can withdraw. She pressed her lips into a thin line. The reality of Donovan's situation sank in. Yes, he was privileged with endless resources, but those resources came tethered to demands. So what happens now? She asked gently. He slid his hand over hers on the counter. I'm not giving up on seeing you, if that's what you're worried about. But my father wants a meeting tonight, apparently to clarify my priorities. I can't dodge that. His thumb brushed her knuckles. I wanted you to know things might get messy. Danica squeezed his hand. I've never expected your world to be simple, she replied, heart thrumming at the admission. She paused, uncertain. If it makes your life easier, we can… No! He cut in firmly, reading her suggestion that maybe they cool off for a while. Don't say that. I can handle the pressure, I promise. I just need a little time to settle things. She caught the flicker of steel in his eyes, that trademark determination that told her he wasn't one to be strong-armed. All right, she said, forging a small smile. Just, keep me in the loop. Don't shut me out. His face softened. I promise. He glanced at his watch. I should go, or I'll be late. Then, as if needing one more moment of reassurance, he leaned across the counter and pressed a tender kiss to her forehead. A faint flush crept onto her cheeks at the public display, but in the hush of the shop it felt intimate rather than showy. Good luck, she whispered, her hand lingering on his arm. He nodded, the corner of his mouth lifting in gratitude, and then left in a swirl of quiet tension and aftershave. That evening, as Danica arranged flowers for a funeral service, the saddest kind of order she ever undertook, her thoughts drifted. She wondered how Donovan's meeting with his father was unfolding. She could easily picture the setting, some sleek office in a tower of glass, or maybe a luxurious parlor at an ancestral estate. She imagined Donovan's father as an older version of him, perhaps more severe, more demanding. Did the man have any warmth in him at all? She inserted the final orchid into the arrangement and stepped back. The hush of the shop, closed to customers by now, weighed on her. It was nearly 8 p.m., and outside the street lamps glowed. Ramona had left an hour ago. Normally, Danica found a meditative peace in these late-night tasks, but tonight her nerves felt strung tight. A ping from her phone startled her. Heart leaping, she quickly set aside the pruning shears and grabbed it. A text from Donovan. Out of father's meeting. Was rough. My place in an hour? I'll send a car for you if you're free. She exhaled, shoulders flooding with relief. Yes, I'm free. But no car needed. I'll handle it myself, she typed back. He replied immediately with the address, a suite in one of the city's most exclusive high-rises. She'd heard of it before, a place rumored to host foreign dignitaries and movie stars. It was the epitome of a world she never entered. She tidied up swiftly, locked the shop, and hurried home for a quick shower and a change of clothes. She wasn't sure what to wear for a late-night conversation with a man who might be reeling from family drama, so she chose something comfortable. Dark jeans, a simple blouse, and a light cardigan. Nothing fancy. She refused to pretend she was someone else. Catching a cab, She stared out the window as the city lights blurred by. She tried to quell the flutter in her chest. Another step into Donovan's realm. For once, she couldn't read what might happen next. At the high-rise, the doorman greeted her politely, verifying her name on a tablet. Evidently, Donovan had left instructions. She stepped onto a plush elevator with mirrored walls, pressed the button for the top floor. As she ascended, the city's skyline revealed itself through the glass panels. She'd never been this high in any building. The elevator doors slid open to a private foyer. Hesitantly, she stepped out. Before she could knock, the double doors at the end of the marble corridor swung open. Donovan stood there, no tie or jacket, just his dress shirt sleeves rolled up. The lines of weariness under his eyes told her everything. "Hey," he greeted softly. She offered a small smile. "Hey, you all right?" "Better now." He stepped aside so she could enter. "Come in." Danica swept her gaze around. The interior was expansive, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing a breathtaking view of the glittering city. The decor was elegant but not ostentatious, a reflection of Donovan's personal style, perhaps. Nonetheless, the size alone made her swallow. It felt almost surreal. She drifted into the living area, noticing subtle touches of warmth, a vase of flowers on a table by the window, a plush gray sofa, a few paintings that hinted at a quiet sophistication. Donovan lingered near her, obviously trying to read her reaction. "Too much?" he asked wryly. She gave a slight laugh. "It's a lot, but it's you." She turned to face him fully. "Do you live here alone?" He nodded. "Technically, my father has his own estate. Sophia sometimes jokes this place is half office, half home. But after tonight, I'm wishing it was more of a sanctuary." She studied his expression. Concern tugged at her chest. "What happened at the meeting?" He sank onto the sofa, gesturing for her to join him. She did, noticing how the cushions practically enveloped her. "My father's upset that I'm not managing my time effectively, as he puts it. He wants me to cut personal distractions, like this, us, and focus on finalizing the new deals. We have a major expansion in the works, and he thinks any sign of my personal life is a liability if it's not part of our curated image." The way he said liability stung. Danica's spine stiffened. "So I'm a liability," she repeated, her voice quiet. He dragged a hand through his hair. "No, that's what he says. I told him it's my life, not his PR campaign. But he threatened to step in and override some of my decisions if I don't fall in line. My father, let's just say he wields power in ways that can't be ignored." A knot coiled in her stomach. "What does that mean for you? For us?" He turned to her, eyes earnest. "I don't want it to mean anything for us, except maybe that I have to be more careful. My father doesn't define me. I have controlling shares in the firm, after all. He can't just topple me. But things might get messy." He swallowed. "I just want you to know that if he or anyone from my circle tries to meddle or intimidate you, you can come to me. I'll handle it." The implication that intimidation was even on the table set her heart pounding. "I didn't sign up for some corporate war, Donovan." His hand covered hers, warm and trembling slightly. "I know, and I'm sorry. I didn't expect it to escalate so fast. My father's suspicious about everything new I do, always measuring how it affects the brand and the bottom line." She inhaled shakily, trying to process the collision of their worlds. "Your brand," she murmured. "I guess that's how wealthy families operate. But we're talking about my life. I can't just be a pawn in their game." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her closer. "You're not a pawn, and I won't let you get hurt by any of this." She could feel tension radiating off him, the stress of fighting battles in a domain that, to her, felt alien and nerve-wracking. They sat like that for a long moment, the city lights painting shifting shadows on the polished floors. Finally, Danica lifted her gaze to him. "So what do we do now?" He exhaled. "We keep going. We stay honest with each other. I won't let them push me around, and I won't hide you away either. But we might need to be ready for gossip, for rumors, for people in my world prying." Her heart thudded with both fear and a spark of defiance. If the last few weeks had shown her anything, it was how unexpectedly real her connection with Donovan felt. She wanted to see where it led, no matter how improbable it seemed. "All right," she said softly. "I'm not backing off unless you tell me to." His relief was palpable. He brushed his knuckles along her cheek tenderly. "Thank you." She mustered a small, wry grin. "But let's be clear. If your father or anyone else shows up at my shop throwing around threats, I will let them know that I don't scare easily. I grew up dealing with pushy landlords, tough competition, and every possible personal crisis. I can handle myself." A tired but genuine laugh escaped him. "I believe it. God help them if they try." In that moment, their eyes locked, and the tension between them shifted from fear to something deeper, an intimacy forged by mutual resolve. He tilted his head, and she leaned in, meeting his lips gently. For a heartbeat, the swirl of external pressures vanished. There was only the electric warmth passing between them, soft and insistent. When they broke apart, Danica exhaled slowly. "I don't need your world's approval, Donovan. I just need yours. And for you to respect me the way I am." Emotion flashed across his face. "You already have all of that." In the hush of that high-rise suite, they chose to hold on, to each other, to the fragile promise of a love that neither had sought but had somehow found. The city's neon glow framed them, as though capturing a moment suspended outside the demands of both floral deliveries and corporate expansions. Yet behind that glow, they both knew the darkness of potential fallout remained, edging closer with each day. The days that followed brought a delicate balance neither Danica nor Donovan had navigated before. On the surface, life continued much as it had. Danica arranged flowers, managed her deliveries, and weathered the daily dramas of brides, birthdays, and funerals. Donovan juggled meetings, strategized with boards, and ventured into the old district whenever he could, assisting at rains and blooms with a quiet sense of purpose. Yet beneath these ordinary rhythms, tension simmered, like a string pulled taut, ready to snap with one wrong move. Donovan's father, Warren Street Clare, wasn't one to make empty threats. And while Donovan brushed off the older man's demands in private, he knew every defiance invited potential retaliation. No matter how cordial their family dinners or how respectful the father's words, there was an undercurrent of disapproval that promised complications. Danica tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the joy she found in Donovan's presence. But she wasn't naive. She noticed his unease whenever his phone buzzed with a new email or call. She felt the silent weight whenever he mentioned upcoming investor events. Even so, she vowed to cherish what they were creating, determined not to let fear dictate her actions. It was a late Friday morning when the fragile bubble burst. The shop was surprisingly quiet, the flow of customers slower than usual. Danica was in the back office, reorganizing payment receipts, while Ramona manned the front counter. A dramatic thunderstorm had swept in earlier, and the rumble of distant thunder still resonated through the shop's walls. Suddenly, Ramona's voice rose in alarm. Danica? Can you come out here?" Something in her tone put Danica on alert. She emerged to find two unfamiliar men in tailored suits standing by the flower displays. They were scanning the place with casual arrogance. One man, tall and broad-shouldered, wore an impeccably pressed navy suit. His companion, slightly shorter but with a steely glint in his eyes, loitered closer to the counter. Danica's pulse jumped. These men didn't look like they were here for a bouquet. "Hello?" she said, keeping her voice even. "Looking for something specific?" The taller man smiled, his expression polite but cold. "Are you Danica Rains?" Her heart thumped. She cast Ramona a sidelong glance, then nodded. Yes. Who's asking? He reached into his breast pocket. Danica tensed, but he only withdrew a business card. My name's Miles Kendricks. I work closely with the St. Clair family. My associate here is Cedric Moore. Danica's grip tightened on the edge of the counter. She had braced for something like this, but seeing these men in her shop speaking so calmly still shook her. All right, Miles offered a practiced smile. Apologies if our visit seems abrupt. We just thought a personal conversation would be more effective than phone calls. He stepped forward, appearing to survey the flower arrangements with mild curiosity. Mr. St. Clair, Warren Street Clair that is, asked us to drop by and ensure everything is well. He's concerned, you see. Danica's jaw flexed. Concerned? Cedric, the shorter man, gave a tight smirk. Concerned about Donovan. Concerned about how quickly he's diverted his attention away from priorities that matter. Ramona's nostrils flared in visible annoyance. And what exactly are you implying? Miles lifted a hand, pretending to soothe. No need for hostility. We're just here to deliver a message, Ms. Raines. Sometimes, when a man like Donovan St. Clair has responsibilities of this magnitude, certain distractions can create upheaval. It can harm both parties if it gets out of hand. Danica drew in a calming breath. So I'm a distraction? Miles inclined his head. That's one interpretation. A pulse of anger burned in Danica's chest. She crossed her arms, meeting his gaze. Let me guess. Warren Street Clair sent you to politely warn me off? Cedric was more blunt. He wants Donovan fully focused on the family's business. Rumors of him spending hours here helping out in a tiny flower shop raise eyebrows, spook investors. Mr. St. Clair hoped we could explain the potential repercussions for you and your little establishment if you keep pulling Donovan away. Danica resisted the urge to snap. She recalled Donovan's warning that his father might try intimidation. She also remembered her own resolve not to be cowed. Ramona moved to her side, arms folded in solidarity. Repercussions? Danica repeated evenly. Is that a threat? Miles shook his head, still smiling. Simply a caution. If Donovan's personal life causes major investors to lose confidence in the firm, Mr. St. Clair has every right to safeguard his empire. That might mean cutting funding to certain charities, withdrawing from local revitalization projects that benefit neighborhoods like yours. He gestured vaguely, as if referencing the entire old district. People here could suffer, and the blame would lie, in part, with you. A flush of fury heated Danica's cheeks. The gall was staggering. So you're saying if I don't get out of the way, your boss will punish this neighborhood? And that'll be on me? That's a simplistic reading, Cedric mused, but not inaccurate. Ramona scowled. Who do you think you are, coming in here acting like the mafia? Miles shrugged, turning his gaze on Ramona with a patronizing tilt of his head. We're problem solvers. We handle issues discreetly so they don't become bigger. We're just giving Ms. Raines the courtesy of a friendly heads-up. For a moment, the shop felt unbearably still, only the low rumble of thunder outside punctuating the silence. Danica's heart thundered in her ears, but her voice emerged calm. Tell Warren Street Clair that I'm not backing off. If he wants to sabotage this neighborhood, that's on him. And if he thinks he can bully me, he doesn't know me at all. I grew up fighting to keep this shop going. I'm not scared of a rich man's tantrums. Miles tapped the business card lightly against the countertop. A spirited response. We respect that. Still, consider the bigger picture. Money speaks, Ms. Raines, and sometimes money shouts loud enough to drown out everything else. He placed the card on the counter. If you change your mind, or if you have second thoughts, you can reach us here. It's better to resolve matters gracefully, if at all possible. Cedric offered one last smirk. We'll show ourselves out. They turned and departed, the bell on the door jingling in their wake. Danica stared after them, hands clenched at her sides. Ramona stood tense, a flush of anger coloring her cheeks. Outside, the men disappeared into a sleek black sedan parked at the curb. Then, like a phantom, it pulled away into the rain. "Those snakes!" Ramona burst out. "The nerve! Are you okay, Danica?" Danica forced herself to breathe. Her heart pounded like she'd sprinted a mile. "I'm fine. Furious, but fine." Ramona's eyes flicked to the business card. "They threatened to hurt the entire neighborhood, people's livelihoods, just to force you to give Donovan up." Danica swallowed hard, adrenaline still coursing. "He warned me it could get messy. I guess we're here now." Her voice trembled slightly. She tried to steady it. "I'll call Donovan." Ramona gently squeezed Danica's arm. "We're behind you, cuz. All of us. This place, this community. Nobody wants to be at the mercy of some corporate bully." Danica offered a shaky smile of gratitude, though the knot in her stomach refused to loosen. Her shop suddenly felt smaller, darker. She grabbed her phone and stepped outside into the light drizzle. She needed air, needed to call Donovan without the confines of the store pressing in. The phone rang several times before his voice came through, low and concerned. "Danica?" She sucked in a breath, tears of anger pricking her eyes. "Your father's men came to my shop." A pause loaded with tension. "Are you all right? What did they do?" "They came to warn me off. Said if I distract you, your father might pull funding from local projects, damage my neighborhood. They basically threatened me, and everyone else. Donovan, this is insane." His sharp exhale told her how tightly wound he was. "I'm so sorry. I told you he might lash out, but I never imagined he'd stoop to threatening an entire community." She steadied herself against the wall. "I'm not about to let him dictate my life. But I need to know what you plan to do, because this isn't just about me anymore. It's about a whole neighborhood." His tone hardened. "I'll confront my father. This crosses every line. Danica, I promise I won't let him hurt you or your home. Let me handle it." She wanted to trust him. "Just be careful. He's your father, Donovan, but he's using big weapons here, money and power." A tight silence passed. "I'll call you later today. We'll figure this out." She nodded, the city's drizzle dripping off the awning overhead. "Okay." After hanging up, she stood there a moment longer, letting the rain patter against the street. Fear and anger warred within her. She wasn't willing to lose Donovan over threats, but the cost might be high. In the back of her mind, she recalled how, just a short time ago, she'd found her biggest worries in making rent or scheduling deliveries. Now she was caught in a battle against a man who could yank the financial strings of an entire district. Part of her quaked, but another part refused to be cowed. She turned back inside, forging a brave face for Ramona. "Let's not let them rattle us. We keep doing what we do best. I won't let Warren Street Claire steal our peace." Ramona nodded resolutely. "He won't." But as Danica returned to her tasks, the shadows in the corners of the shop seemed darker, and the occasional boom of thunder felt more ominous. Outside, the rain tapped a steady, relentless beat, as relentless, she suspected, as the storm that now surrounded her budding relationship with Donovan. Dark clouds lingered, casting the city in a somber glow the next morning. The drizzle had slowed to a faint mist, but a sense of foreboding clung to the air, perhaps mirroring the tension now gripping Donovan's and Danica's lives. True to his word, Donovan wasted no time confronting his father. At the break of dawn, he left a curt message on Warren Street. Claire's personal line, "We need to talk, today." There was no turning back. By mid-morning, Donovan stood outside an imposing set of iron gates leading up a paved driveway toward his father's estate. It was a grand stone mansion with manicured lawns and rose gardens meticulously designed to impress. The slow hiss of a fountain provided a soundtrack of luxury. Under normal circumstances, Donovan might have paused to appreciate the landscaping or recall a childhood memory of racing remote control cars across these paths. But now, Fury and resolve quickened his steps. He was escorted inside by a house attendant who wore a polite mask of neutrality. In the foyer, vintage chandeliers glowed faintly against marble floors. Donovan's father waited in the study, a stately room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, plush chairs, and a wide mahogany desk that had been in the St. Clair family for generations. Warren Street Clair rose from behind the desk as his son walked in, his expression distant. He was a tall man, gray at the temples, dressed in a refined charcoal suit. The lines around his eyes betrayed age and a particular ruthlessness that had built the family empire. "Donovan," Warren greeted in a voice that attempted warmth but fell flat. "I expected your call. Have a seat." Donovan ignored the offered chair and remained standing. "Cut the formalities, Dad. I know about the men you sent to Danika's shop." Warren's face remained placid. "Men? I have many employees. You'll have to be specific." "Miles Kendricks and Cedric Moore?" Donovan replied coldly. "They went there under your orders to intimidate her, to threaten an entire neighborhood if Danica doesn't back away from me. Don't bother denying it. Miles left her your message loud and clear." Warren arched an eyebrow. "Is that how she described it?" "I believe they were just delivering certain realities. If your distraction continues, it could jeopardize the reputation of our company and, by extension, the livelihood of many." She needed to know that. Donovan slammed a hand against the desk, rattling a silver penholder. "We've gone through a lot of extremes, but this crosses a line. You don't get to punish people because you disagree with my personal life." His father folded his arms. "Our family name and finances aren't just personal. The brand matters, Donovan. We're in the middle of some of the biggest deals this company has ever pursued. Investors keep asking why you're absent from certain meetings, why you're seen hauling boxes in some rundown flower shop. It's bad optics, and it's costing us credibility." "Credibility?" Donovan repeated, voice tight. "Dad, if your brand is so fragile that it can't handle me dating someone who isn't from our fancy circles, maybe it deserves to fall apart." Warren's nostrils flared at the challenge. "Don't speak to me like that. This empire took decades, generations to build. I won't let you sabotage it for a fling." Donovan's fists clenched. "That's how you see Danica? A fling? She's a woman He caught himself, swallowing a surge of emotion. "She's important to me. What you did was cruel and unnecessary." "She's not one of us," Warren shot back, voice rising. "You don't see how naive this is. She might be using you, or letting you indulge some fantasy of an ordinary life. I've watched countless situations like this. There's nothing special about it." Donovan's jaw tightened. "I know Danica. She's not using me, and even if she were from some different background, that shouldn't matter. Who I spend time with is my choice, not yours. Certainly not your hired bullies." Warren's eyes narrowed. He circled behind the desk, looking momentarily at a family portrait on the wall. "I tried the polite way, Donovan," he said, voice lower now. "You think I enjoy sending employees to have these conversations? I don't, but I have a duty to protect what we've built. You will comply with that." Donovan shook his head. "Or what?" His father's silence dripped with tension. Finally, Warren set his hands flat on the desk. "If you insist on continuing this ill-advised affair, I'll do what's necessary. Freeze funds, block your decisions on upcoming deals, rally the board to question your leadership. You may have controlling shares, but you've also relied on my endorsements and alliances to keep that position stable. Do you really want to risk a power struggle? It would tarnish both our names and possibly cost us everything." A bitter laugh escaped Donovan. "I can't believe this. You'd bring down your own son just to prove a point." Warren's gaze was icy. "I'm protecting the family. If it means removing you from the public eye until you see reason, I won't hesitate. I've done more ruthless things to protect our interests, and you know it." Donovan felt a swirl of anger and heartbreak. He never expected acceptance or warmth, but to watch his father confirm how far he'd go, that stung. "So you'll blackmail your own flesh and blood, destroy innocent people's livelihoods, Just because I dared to step out of the mold? Warren exhaled, almost regretfully. I don't want destruction, Donovan. I want you to come to your senses. End it with this girl. Focus on the upcoming deals. If you do that, this all goes away. The noise settles, the investors relax, and we move forward stronger. Donovan's jaw muscles twitched. He stared at the older man, seeing only the cold reflection of greed and control. No, he said softly. I won't yield to extortion. I've seen what that does to people. I've worked too hard to chart my own path. I'm not letting you or anyone else decide who I care about. Warren's mouth pressed into a thin line. Then be prepared for the fallout. You're forcing my hand. A tension-filled silence hovered. Finally, Donovan stepped back, eyes never leaving his father's. The only one forcing anything is you. And if you harm Danica or that neighborhood in any way, I swear, father or not, I will fight you with everything I have. Warren shook his head, a trace of sadness in his gaze. You're being foolish, son, but you'll learn soon enough. When those illusions fade, I'll be here to pick up the pieces. Donovan laughed bitterly, turning on his heel. I won't need your help. He strode out, anger pulsing through him like fire. Outside, the estate's air felt oppressive, the looming mansion a testament to a lifetime of wealth built on steel wills. He climbed into his waiting car, slamming the door, and drove off, ignoring the texts and calls already pinging on his phone. There was only one place he needed to be right now, by Danica's side. Late afternoon found Danica at her shop, fighting to maintain composure amidst the usual bustle. Ramona had done her best to cover for Danica's obvious distraction, but even loyal customers noticed she seemed off. "How's the new sign coming along, dear?" asked Mrs. Holloway, a sweet elderly neighbor who bought fresh peonies every Thursday. Danica forced a smile, grateful for small talk to keep her mind busy. "Slow progress," Danica replied, "but we'll have it up soon." Mrs. Holloway patted Danica's hand. "Don't fret too much. You're doing a wonderful job, and we all appreciate you." Danica's eyes prickled with gratitude. "Thank you, Mrs. Holloway." As soon as the woman left, Danica ducked into the back room and sank onto a stool, exhaling shakily. Memories of Miles and Cedric's threats replayed in her mind, fueling her anger. But behind that anger lurked real concern about how far Warren Street Claire would go. She sensed Ramona hovering. "Hey," her cousin said softly, stepping in. "Any word from Donovan?" "Not since this morning," Danica answered, "but he said he was going to confront his father." Ramona rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I know you're worried, but Donovan seems strong. If anyone can stand up to that old man, it's him." Danica pressed her lips together. "I just hate feeling powerless. I won't let them scare me off, but what if Warren's threats aren't empty? I can't put this neighborhood at risk." Ramona nodded in sympathy. Before she could respond, the shop's bell chimed out front. Another customer, or maybe a delivery. Danica sighed, bracing herself. "I'll be right there," she called, forcing her voice steady. When she emerged into the main area, her heart jolted. It wasn't a customer, it was Donovan, looking grim and disheveled, as though he'd come straight from a harsh windstorm. Ramona flashed Danica a look, then discreetly vanished into the back, giving them space. Danica stepped forward. "Donovan, you're here." He tried a weary smile. "Where else would I be?" In the soft glow of the shop, she noticed the anger still simmering in his eyes. Without waiting, he pulled her into a firm embrace. She melted into it, relief warring with tension. They broke apart, her hands on his chest. "How did it go?" He shook his head. "As expected. He made it clear he'd do anything to break us apart, cutting off funds, tarnishing my leadership, even blackmail. I told him I wouldn't stand down." Danica's stomach twisted. "So it's a standoff." His lips pressed together. "Yes, but I'm not letting him push me around. If he wants a war, I'll give him one." For a moment, his fierce tone scared her. She'd never seen Donovan quite like this, equal parts enraged and protective. "I won't lose you because of him." She clasped his hand. "I'm with you, but I'm also scared for my shop, my neighborhood. We don't have deep pockets or a safety net. If Warren truly wants to punish the old district, we could all suffer." Donovan's features flickered with guilt and pain. "I know. That's why I'm exploring ways to counter his financial stronghold. I have some leverage. This city means more to me than he realizes. Plus, I can invest personally, help keep local businesses afloat, if that's what it takes." A swirl of hope and anxiety mingled in her chest. "I appreciate it. But it's not just about money. People's trust is fragile. If Warren uses his influence to kill local projects, it might demoralize everyone." His eyes met hers, unwavering. "I've spent years building my own alliances, forging networks beyond my father's shadow. If he tries to pull out of those revitalization deals, I can try to convince partners to stay. There are philanthropic initiatives I can accelerate myself. The important thing is, I won't let your community become collateral damage." She felt tears threaten, not of sorrow but of gratitude. "I don't want you sacrificing everything just for me. It's not fair." He brushed her cheek gently. "You deserve fairness, and if I don't stand up for what I believe, I'd be just another puppet in his empire. This is my fight too, Danica. Maybe it always was, and I just needed a reason to see it." Her heart squeezed. Behind him, the flower shop's bright blooms seemed to reflect the contradictions of her life. Beautiful yet fragile, a testament to perseverance. "All right," she whispered, voice trembling. "I believe in you." In the hush that followed, they stood close, leaning on each other. Just weeks ago, they'd been strangers, a billionaire fleeing shallow praise and a florist determined to guard her heart. Now they were entangled in a battle with consequences neither had imagined. Ramona's voice gently broke the silence. Guys? Sorry to interrupt, but we have a few customers." She tilted her head toward the door, where two individuals hovered awkwardly, not wanting to intrude but in need of service. Donovan attempted a small smile, stepping back with reluctance. "I'll let you handle your customers." Danica inclined her head, wiping her cheek discreetly. "Yes, of course. You can wait in the back if you want, or head home if you need to rest." He considered, then glanced at the clock. "Actually, I'd like to help, if that's okay. My schedule's cleared for the rest of the day, and He paused. "I could use the normalcy." Her expression softened. "Sure. But first, you'll have to learn how to tie a proper ribbon." He gave a gentle chuckle. "Deal." And so they slipped into that routine, briefly setting aside the storm looming overhead. As they assisted those patrons and arranged hydrangeas for a hospital delivery, a fragile peace settled. Yet in both their minds, the confrontation with Warren hovered like a dark cloud, reminding them that the hardest battles often unfold not on public stages, but in the hidden realms of family ties and corporate power. The next week felt like walking on a tightrope stretched between two soaring skyscrapers. Every day, Donovan steeled himself for some new blow from Warren, some financial stunt or boardroom maneuver meant to undermine his position. And each time the phone rang or an urgent email pinged, Danica braced for the fallout that might strike her neighborhood. Yet, nothing explosive happened. At first. Instead, life seemed oddly normal, or perhaps the right word was tense, like the air before a storm finally breaks. Danica threw herself into her shop, determined not to let uncertainty keep her from her customers. Donovan, for his part, tried to fulfill his corporate duties while quietly shoring up alliances. He scheduled hushed meetings with partners he trusted, subtly warning them about possible upheaval if Warren made any drastic moves. Word spread through the city's financial circles, a subtle rumor that the younger saint, Claire, was building a new coalition, one that might bypass his father's iron influence. Some found it intriguing, Others were wary, yet all could sense something brewing. Through it all, the bond between Donovan and Danica only grew stronger. Their stolen evenings felt precious, moments of normalcy amid looming chaos. They'd share late dinners at her place or quick lunches in tucked-away cafes, exchanging stories of the day's battles. Their conversations were deeper now, laced with confessions about fears and hopes neither had dared speak before. But even love, or the promise of it, couldn't fully insulate them from the approaching storm. One afternoon, Danica and Ramona were rearranging the front display, showcasing vivid tulips and cheerful gerberas to catch the eyes of passers-by. The sun fell in long beams through the shop windows, warming the tiled floor. An older gentleman shuffled past outside, tipping his hat in greeting. A fleeting sense of peace washed over Danica. Then her phone buzzed. She fished it from her pocket, noticing Donovan's name on the screen. A surge of warmth rippled through her, until she heard the tension in his voice. "Hey," he said, breath short. "Have you seen the news articles popping up online?" Her brow creased. "News articles? No, I've been buried here all day. Why, what happened?" His pause bristled with alarm. "There's a series of rumors being fed to certain tabloids about my personal life, our personal life. They're framing you as some opportunistic gold digger who's latched onto me, saying you're using me to pump money into your failing business." Danica's heart slammed. "What? That's insane." "That's not all," he continued, voice grim. "They mention your neighborhood too, hinting you're behind some scheme to extort my family into funding a massive revival project. They're painting me like a naive fool, manipulated by a florist from the wrong side of town." Bitterness laced each word. She felt her stomach drop. "This is your father's doing, isn't it?" "Almost certainly. He won't outright admit it, of course, but the tabloids that publish these rumors all have financial ties to St. Clair companies. My father is pulling strings to ruin your reputation, maybe trying to push me into damage control mode." Danica gripped the edge of the display table, ignoring Ramona's worried gaze. "I can't believe he'd stoop to such public lies. This could harm the shop, Donovan. People might believe it. They might think I'm conning you." "I know," he muttered. "I'm furious. My legal team is drafting a statement. But it's tricky. If we escalate, we risk more media coverage. If we stay quiet, the rumor might spread unchecked." Trembling, Danica forced herself to speak calmly. "What should we do?" He let out a ragged breath. "For now, I'll publicly discredit the rumors where I can. As for you, I don't want you to feel forced into the spotlight. But if you want to respond on your own behalf, I'll support you." She looked at Ramona, who was hovering protectively. Fear coiled in her belly, but also indignation. Why should she let her good name be dragged through the mud? I'll think about it," she said, voice low. "Keep me updated." "Of course," he answered. "And remember, I'm not backing down. This is just a new tactic of his. But we'll push back. Together." When the call ended, Danica told Ramona everything. Her cousin set her jaw. "They're really trying to paint you as some manipulative girl from the hood. That's beyond disgusting." Danica nodded. "If people believe it, it could destroy the trust I've built. And not just for me. Other local business owners might be seen as suspicious too." Her thoughts raced. Would wedding clients start canceling? Would corporate gigs vanish if they feared association with a scandalous florist? Ramona's eyes flashed. "The customers who truly know you won't buy that crap, but we have to get ahead of it somehow." Danica steeled herself. "We'll see what Donovan's statement says. Maybe we can do a small post on social media, clearing the air. Nothing dramatic, just the truth." Her cousin nodded fiercely. "Whatever you decide, I'm behind you, 100%. She squeezed Ramona's hand, gratitude choking her. "Thank you." Outside, a breeze kicked up, rattling the door chime. It was as if the city itself sensed the unrest. For the rest of the day, Danica fought to keep her mind on flower arrangements, greeting every customer with her usual warmth, determined not to let the tabloids' poison seep into her shop. But each time the door opened, she worried some reporter might barge in or a curious neighbor might ask prying questions. Late in the afternoon, Donovan showed up unannounced, stepping through the door with his phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call abruptly, anger etched on his face. "Hey," Danica said gently, bracing herself. "Any progress?" He exhaled, removing his suit jacket and tossing it over a chair. "Sophia's analyzing the outlets that posted these rumors. We've traced them to a PR firm with indirect ties to one of my father's subsidiaries. We can't easily prove Warren orchestrated it, but we know. I'm trying to decide if we should file a defamation suit right away or handle it quietly." She glanced around the shop, grateful that at the moment no customers hovered. How would a lawsuit help? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. It'd send a message, might deter further attacks, but it also drags the story into a bigger spotlight. The press loves a courtroom drama, even if it's unsubstantiated. It might stir up more tension for you. Danica nodded, lips tight. "Maybe we should talk to the other small businesses here, see if they'll support us, or at least stand by me when I deny these accusations." His face brightened slightly. "That's a good idea. A collective show of solidarity, people from the old district who respect you, could help kill the rumor that you're some cunning manipulator." She managed a wry chuckle. "I can't even manipulate my cat into not knocking over vases. I'm hardly a criminal mastermind." Yet her heart remained heavy, thinking of the fight ahead. Ramona sidled up, placing a hand on Donovan's shoulder. "People in this neighborhood trust Danica, and if you need statements or testimonials, I can help gather them. We can do a quick online campaign, pictures and quotes from folks who actually know Danica's character." Donovan nodded. "Exactly. I'll have some of our PR allies quietly amplify it." "Look at us," Danica murmured, shaking her head in disbelief. "All because your father can't stand the idea of us together. This is insane." Donovan's gaze softened. "I'm so sorry you're pulled into this. If it gets too much—" Her chin lifted. "I'm not bailing just because he's loud and powerful. If it were just about me, I might consider lying low. But he's slandering my entire community by implication." A flicker of pride lit his eyes. "Then we stand strong." They shared a moment of silent resolve, a sense that their connection ran deeper than just budding romance. They were partners in a battle for dignity and truth. Maybe that realization brought them a little closer, even as external forces threatened to tear everything down. Over the next day, Danica and Ramona reached out to local shop owners, many of whom had known Danica's family for decades. They recorded brief video snippets of people praising her integrity or snapped photos of her in front of the florist's stall, smiling with longtime customers. Donovan coordinated with allies in the philanthropic realm, quietly encouraging them to support the old district publicly. The narrative, they hoped, would counter the tabloid smear campaign. Sure enough, social media posts began popping up, painting a drastically different picture than the rumor mill had spread. Local business pages displayed Danica's devotion to community, wedding clients gushed about her fairness and kindness, and neighbors recalled how she donated flowers to the youth center every spring. It was a small wave, but it gained momentum as more voices chimed in. One evening, as Danica closed the shop, her phone pinged with a news alert. Her stomach lurched, worried it was another hit piece. Instead, it was a widely circulated article titled, "Local Florist Fights Back Against Baseless Rumors, Community Rallies." The piece detailed the recent gossip about her, then cited numerous testimonies refuting it, praising her character. Toward the end, it referenced Donovan Street. Claire's public denouncement of the tabloid smears. Danica's breath whooshed out in relief, reading the supportive quotes. The article's tone was almost sympathetic toward her, painting Warren's rumored meddling as a desperate attempt to control Donovan's personal life. While it didn't name Warren outright, it left enough insinuations that readers could connect the dots. She messaged Donovan a screenshot of the headline, typing, "Thank you for having my back. It seems people are seeing the truth," he replied almost instantly. "We did this together. Let's keep pushing forward. I'll see you tonight if you're free." Setting her phone aside, Danica felt a rush of gratitude and cautious optimism. They hadn't emerged unscathed, but they were still standing. Maybe the seeds of this smear campaign wouldn't find fertile ground after all. Yet a quiet voice in her mind reminded her that Warren Street Claire was cunning. Would he give up so easily? Or was this a feint, a pause before the next strike? Stepping outside into the warm night, she inhaled the sweet scent of blossoms carried on a light breeze. The old district's streetlights pooled soft halos on the pavement. In the hush of the moment, she allowed herself to believe that they'd turned a corner, that truth would outshine the lies. And as her thoughts drifted to Donovan and the fragile strength they'd built, she hoped this was a dawn rather than just a lull in the gathering storm. Over the following week, a fragile calm settled around Danica and Donovan. They kept waiting for Warren's next move, but it didn't arrive in the form of another smear campaign. If anything, the scandalous rumors started to fade, overshadowed by fresher celebrity gossip and political scandals. Online, local supporters continued chiming in, praising Danica's shop, and Donovan's quiet influence helped sustain the pushback. Amid this cautious optimism, the two of them found a gentle rhythm. Late nights in Danica's cozy kitchen, sipping tea and laughing about the day's anecdotes. Occasional breaks in Donovan's packed schedule, where he'd arrive at her shop with sandwiches and flowers he couldn't resist buying, even though she already had a shop full of them. They cherished each moment, aware that their peace might be temporary. But in that lull, hope blossomed. Maybe Warren had realized how futile his interference was. Maybe, just maybe, they could forge ahead without his constant shadow. A crisp Saturday morning arrived, sun flooding the old district with warm light. Danica was in the shop early, prepping for a bridal consultation. Donovan texted, offering a ride to pick up extra supplies from the wholesale market across town. She gladly accepted. The day was looking busy. Several weekend events required fresh stock, and the chance to do it together felt both productive and comforting. They headed out in Donovan's sleek car, a quiet nod to efficiency over the battered old delivery van. As he navigated city streets, Danica glanced at him in the driver's seat, marveling at how seamlessly he slipped into her world. Gone were the stiff suits and guarded expressions. He was casually dressed, hair slightly mussed by the open window's breeze. "Any word from your father lately?" she asked, breaking the companionable silence. He shook his head, eyes on the road. "None. It's suspiciously quiet. Sophia mentioned he's been in back-to-back meetings with some key board members, but no news of any new sabotage." She drummed her fingers on her thigh. It could be good news, or the calm before the storm. Donovan nodded, a wry twist to his mouth. "Agreed. I've got to assume he's planning something, but let's not let paranoia ruin the day." She offered a soft smile. "Deal. Flowers first, paranoia second." They reached the wholesale market, a sprawling warehouse brimming with rows of flowers, greenery, and supplies from local and international growers. Danica lit up, diving into the selection of baby's breath, carnations, and vibrant ranunculus for an upcoming wedding. Donovan trailed her like a supportive shadow, pushing a trolley laden with buckets, occasionally remarking on color palettes or asking about floral varieties. "They have these peonies in that bride's color theme," Danica murmured, eyes bright. "You see them?" He nodded, steering the cart closer. "Yes, those soft pink ones, right?" She grinned. "Exactly. She'll love them." It felt simple. For an hour, they were just two people loading flowers, chatting about which textures matched which ribbons. A few fellow florists recognized Danica, greeting her warmly. Some gave Donovan curious looks, but no one treated him like a spectacle. It was oddly normal, and for that, both were grateful. Finally, they paid for the loaded cart, stacked everything carefully in Donovan's trunk, and prepared to return to Rains and Blooms. Do we have time to grab coffee? Donovan asked hopefully, checking his watch. Sure, Danica replied, leaning her head back against the passenger seat. I have a bride consultation at noon, but I can spare 30 minutes. He smiled. Great. There's a cafe 2 blocks over. I'll park by that little park we passed. They strolled side by side through the modest green space, a patch of lawn and benches ringed by blossoming dogwood trees. Families fed pigeons, and an elderly couple ambled slowly on the path. The cafe stood across the street, its exterior painted in cheerful blues. But just as they reached the curb, Donovan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, eyebrows shooting up. It's Miles Kendricks, he muttered, voice laced with annoyance. The man who threatened me? Danica said, her stomach twisting. Yes, Warren's lapdog. Donovan tightened his hold on the phone. Let's see what he wants. He took a few steps away to answer. Danica watched from a short distance, heart rate climbing as she noted Donovan's posture grow rigid, his expression sharpening. After a terse exchange, he hung up and returned. What now? She asked, bracing herself. Donovan raked a hand through his hair. He said there's an urgent meeting at the Old Saint, Clare Estate. Apparently my father's insisted on gathering the family's keyboard members, plus legal counsel. Miles claims it's about restructuring certain assets. He demanded I attend immediately. Danica frowned. Sounds like another trap. He exhaled. Likely. But I have to show up. If I don't, he could spin it as me neglecting my duties or refusing to engage. That might give him the leverage to challenge my leadership in the company. She swallowed. Then you need to go. I'll handle things at the shop on my own. His eyes flicked to hers, worry etched there. I hate leaving you in the lurch. But this could be big. It's fine, she assured gently. I'm used to handling the shop solo. Just promise you'll keep me updated. He nodded, stepping closer, hands sliding around her waist. Of course. He hesitated, then pressed a kiss to her forehead. If anything comes up, call me, okay? And be vigilant. If there's any sign of my father's goons... She managed a small, brave grin. I'll handle them. You worry about your father. They parted with an embrace that felt too brief, the tension between them palpable. Donovan hurried back to the car, the trunk still filled with the wholesale flowers. Danica insisted she'd order a rideshare back to the shop so he didn't waste time. He left with a lingering look of concern, and she remained in the park, exhaling a shaky breath. An hour later, Danica was back at Rains and Blooms, trying to focus on her bride consultation. But her thoughts kept drifting to Donovan, wondering how that meeting was going. She pictured Warren's estate, those towering gates, the imposing mansion, a room full of power-hungry board members. Would Warren push him to the brink again, or launch some new scheme designed to tear them apart? She had to trust Donovan's resolve. The bride, a sweet woman named Allegra, was deep in describing her color palette. Danica forced herself to concentrate, jotting notes about the lilac and silver accents Allegra wanted. She mentally matched those shades to the flowers they'd just bought. Suddenly, the shop door swung open with a force that made the bell jingle alarmingly. A man rushed in, short of breath, eyes darting. Danica recognized him, Mr. Parsons, who ran the tiny bookstore 2 doors down. "Danica," he gasped, voice trembling. You need to come quickly." Allegra paused mid-sentence, blinking in confusion. Danica stood, alarmed by the panic on Mr. Parsons' face. "What's wrong?" "It's about the new sign out front," he said, choking on words. "A group of men, construction workers, they're taking it down." Her pulse slammed. "What do you mean, taking it down? We just replaced that old sign last week." "I overheard them saying the city permit was revoked, that your signage was suddenly illegal. They're dismantling it. I tried to stop them, but they said they have orders from the building owner and the city." Shock and fury welled inside Danica. "That's impossible. We paid for that permit. Everything was filed correctly." Her bride consultation momentarily forgotten, Danica glanced at Allegra. I'm sorry. I need to step out for a second. There's a situation. Allegra's eyes widened. Go, it's okay. Ramona, hearing the commotion from the back, appeared. What's going on? Danica relayed Mr. Parsons' words. Ramona's expression hardened. Together they rushed outside, Allegra trailing behind out of concern. On the sidewalk, 3 burly men in hard hats and orange vests had already unbolted the brand-new sign from above the shop's facade. Danica's heart twisted. It had taken her months to save for that sign, a beautiful piece in softly curved letters reading "Rains and Blooms." One of the workers was lowering it onto a truck bed with a crane. "Stop!" Danica shouted, racing forward. "What are you doing?" The man controlling the crane frowned. "Ma'am, we have a work order. Your signage permit is invalid. Building owner says this has to come down." Anger flared like wildfire. "We have a permit on file, paid in full with the city. Show me your documentation." He gestured vaguely to another worker who rummaged in a folder and thrust a paper at Danica. She scanned it, her disbelief turning to outrage. It cited a revocation based on zoning technicalities, something about the sign's size not complying with new rules. There was the name of the building owner, whom Danica had never even met as she rented from a local management group, and the city's stamp. Ramona snatched the paper next, eyes blazing. "This is nonsense. They're claiming our sign exceeds dimension limits by 2 inches? We measured everything properly." One of the men shrugged. "Lady, not our problem. We got the go-ahead from the city. If you have an issue, take it up with them. We just do the removal." Behind them, a small crowd of onlookers was gathering, neighbors, customers, each wearing concern or confusion. Mr. Parsons wrung his hands. Allegra covered her mouth in shock. Danica tried calling the city office, but it was a Saturday. Nobody picked up. Ramona jumped on the phone too, searching for the property manager's emergency contact. The workers moved on, unceremoniously loading Danica's precious sign into the back of the truck. "This has to be Warren Street." "Claire," Danica breathed, voice trembling with rage. "He must have pulled strings with the building owner or city officials. He's punishing me." Ramona shot her a grim look. "I'll bet my life on it." "Wait, you can't just drive off with that sign?" Danica lunged toward the truck, tears of anger threatening to spill. The crane operator simply climbed into the driver's seat. "We're just following orders. Sorry, lady." With a roar of the engine, they pulled away, leaving Danica on the curb, staring at the space where her sign had been. The heartbreak of seeing that bare facade struck her like a punch. A wave of sympathy and indignation spread through the small crowd. Mr. Parsons murmured apologetically. Neighbors traded angry whispers. Allegra approached, eyes wide. "Danica, I'm so sorry. This is awful." Danica swallowed hard, forcing a steadiness into her tone. "It's okay," she managed. "We'll fix this. I just need to call someone." Ramona put an arm around her. "We'll fight back, just like we did with the smear campaign. This is your shop, your name. We're not letting them destroy it." Danica nodded, though her heart felt like a lead weight. "I need to call Donovan," she whispered. "He needs to know how low his father is stooping." Even as she said it, a numb disbelief spread through her. She'd assumed that in the wake of the failed rumors, Warren might back off. Instead, he'd taken a more insidious route, targeting permits, building owners, municipal codes. A wave of dread washed over Danica. If Warren was willing to do this, what else might he do next? Her hand trembled as she dialed Donovan. She glanced once more at the empty spot where her bright sign had hung. The fight was far from over, and the next strike had just landed with crushing force. The moment Danica's call connected, Donovan's strained voice crackled on the other end. The urgent meeting at Warren's estate was in full swing. She could hear low murmurs and the clink of glassware in the background, but he hushed them, stepping away to talk to her in private. "Danica," he said tightly, sensing her distress even before she spoke. She swallowed the knot in her throat. He did it again. "Your father." 3 men showed up with a bogus work order and tore down my brand new shop sign. Claimed it wasn't up to code. A sharp exhale escaped him. That can't be a coincidence. Not after how carefully you followed all the permit rules. Exactly, she muttered, frustration building. They just took it. The entire sign I saved for months to replace. It's gone. A silence of stunned anger stretched between them. Then Donovan said, "I'm in the middle of a board meeting my father called. I had a feeling he was planning something bigger. Look, I'll be there as soon as I can. Let me confront him. Right here, right now." Her heart thumped. "Are you sure? I don't want to blow up your meeting." "It's time it blew up," he growled. "He's going too far." And with that, Donovan ended the call. Danica stared at her phone, chest tight, praying that this confrontation might finally put an end to Warren's vendetta. Around her, a handful of neighbors and customers lingered, simmering with anger and sympathy. Ramona was on another call, trying to track down the city official who allegedly revoked the permit. In the distance, the forklift that had carried away her sign was gone, leaving behind only scuffed brick and empty bolts on the facade. Clenching her fists, Danica forced her chin up. "We won't be intimidated." She thought of how Donovan had repeatedly promised to protect her and the community. Now, with the father's harassment hitting fresh lows, that promise would be tested. Meanwhile, at Warren Street Claire's estate, Donovan rejoined a polished conference room filled with board members and attorneys. His father stood at the head of a long mahogany table detailing a plan to restructure certain assets. On the surface, it sounded like a standard corporate reshuffle, but Donovan recognized the subtle angles. It was a power move. Warren was reassigning resources and forging alliances that would give him more control, and box Donovan out. Donovan strode forward, ignoring the polite hush that fell over the room. "Father," he said coldly, "we need to talk. Now." Warren lifted his gaze from a stack of glossy reports. "Donovan, we're in the midst of crucial business. Sit down, and we can address your concerns at the appropriate time." A hush spread across the board members, some exchanging anxious glances. They'd witnessed father-son tensions before, but never quite so openly. Donovan rapped his knuckles on the table. "You tore down Danica's sign! You manipulated city codes to do it!" Warren's jaw tightened. "If you have personal grievances, handle them after this meeting. These men and women are here for corporate matters, not your romantic entanglements." "This is a corporate matter," Donovan snapped, turning to the assembled members. "Our chairman here has used the company's political connections and his personal clout to orchestrate an attack on Ms. Rain's business. He's interfering in local commerce, undermining public trust and risking our brand's reputation. Again." Several board members stiffened, glancing at each other with concern. One older member, Ms. Ortega, cleared her throat. "Donovan, that's a serious accusation. Do you have proof of these actions directly linking back to Mr. St. Clair?" He spared her a curt nod. "Paper trails might be buried, but it's obvious. We've seen an orchestrated smear campaign before. Now there's been a sudden code violation pinned on her sign. The timing is too neat." Warren eyed him icily. "I have nothing to do with city codes or sign permits. And if Ms. Rains' signage truly violated regulations, that's on her for not following the law." "That's a lie," Donovan shot back, anger flaring. "Her sign was properly permitted. You used one of your real estate contacts or a city official in your pocket to revoke it." A hush reigned. Some board members looked uneasy, while others seemed enthralled by this drama. Warren drew a slow breath, controlling his temper. "Son," he began, voice measured, "I understand you're emotionally compromised. You're protecting this young lady. But you mustn't let personal attachments endanger the company's well-being if she can't follow simple municipal guidelines." "You're the one endangering the company," Donovan's voice rose. "Did you learn nothing from that ridiculous tabloid fiasco? The brand took a hit because it painted us as petty. We barely managed to contain the PR fallout. Now you're doubling down on sabotage. If the public discovers you're punishing local business owners for personal reasons, our stock will plummet." A murmur of alarm spread among the board. Ms. Ortega looked at Warren, eyes narrowed. "Is this true? We can't afford another scandal. Our investors are still jittery after the rumors last week." Another board member chimed in. "If the press uncovers direct interference in city permits, it could be classified as corruption. This is beyond personal disputes." Warren's expression didn't waver, but Donovan saw the flicker of calculation in his father's gaze. "I have done nothing illegal," Warren insisted calmly, "and certainly nothing to damage the Saint Claire name. Donovan is simply overreacting, likely egged on by this woman who—" "Enough," Donovan cut in. He looked to the rest of the board, spreading his hands. "We all know what's really happening. My father sees Danica as a threat to the pristine Saint Claire image, but in reality, he's the threat, engaging in petty retribution that can blow up in our faces. If we keep letting him run unchecked, we'll destroy not just our moral standing but also our bottom line. The world is changing. People won't tolerate corporate bullies forever." Silence weighed. Slowly, Ms. Ortega rose from her seat. She was an influential figure with decades of loyalty to the company. "Mr. Saint Claire," she addressed Warren directly, "I've worked under your leadership for a long time, but this year's chain of events is deeply troubling. We can't afford to ignore them." A ripple of agreement moved through the room. Another board member nodded. "We must consider Donovan's perspective. These controversies put the firm at risk. Our code of ethics must mean something." Warren's cheek twitched, realizing the tide was turning. "You all know me. I've always put the company first. If the boy chooses to pursue reckless romances—" One of the attorneys cut him off, gently. "Mr. St. Clair, we might need to open an internal review. Any improper use of company or personal influence to target a private citizen is grounds for a governance inquiry. If the rest of the board supports it, we can't simply brush this under the rug." Warren's face turned a mottled red. He looked around, finding fewer and fewer allies. Decades of rule, now threatened by a new generation's moral stance and by Donovan's determination. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the patriarch's features. Donovan pressed the moment. "I propose we table all of these asset restructures until the board concludes that internal review. If we find no wrongdoing, fine. But if we do—" He let the implication hang. Several heads nodded. Ms. Ortega turned to Warren. "Chairman, I suggest we adjourn this meeting and reconvene after a thorough investigation. It seems the most prudent course." Furious silence radiated from Warren. His jaw was set, eyes stormy. But with multiple board members now rising in support of Donovan's proposal, the patriarch had little choice. "Very well," he ground out. "Meeting adjourned." With that, an electric hush fell. One by one, the board members gathered their files, casting wary glances at Warren, who stood rigidly behind his seat. Donovan lingered last, meeting his father's glare with grim resolve. "You might have won this round," Warren hissed under his breath, "but do you truly think I won't push back?" Donovan squared his shoulders. "Push back all you want, but your stranglehold is slipping. This era of dirty tactics is ending." He spun on his heel, marching out of the estate without a backward glance. By the time Donovan arrived at Danica's shop, it was mid-afternoon. She stood outside near the empty bolts, face resolute. The fresh patch of bare brick above the door cut a jarring sight, but her expression was set with quiet defiance. He crossed to her swiftly, and she went into his arms, relief mingling with tension. "How'd it go?" she asked, stepping back to look at his face. He exhaled. "I forced an internal review. The board is finally concerned about how far my father's gone. He might still try something else, but I'm not alone now. We have momentum on our side." Her brow knit. "That's something." Maybe he can't just do whatever he wants anymore. Donovan nodded, glancing up at the mutilated storefront. "I'm so sorry about this sign, Danica. I promise, one way or another, we'll fix it." She pursed her lips, tears threatening. "It's not just a sign, it's my identity. But if it's meant to intimidate me—" She shook her head. "It's doing the opposite. I'm more determined than ever to stand my ground." Ramona, who'd been near the door, chimed in. "We're already planning a small fundraiser among local businesses to help cover a new sign if the city plays hardball. The rest of the block is furious about what happened. We're banding together." Her eyes flicked to Donovan. "With your push at the board level, maybe we can corner Warren from both ends." Donovan felt a swell of gratitude. "I'll match whatever funds you all raise. We'll get the sign back up, legally, publicly, and we'll make sure everyone knows how it came down in the first place." Danica's eyes glistened. "Thank you. Not just for me, but for believing in this neighborhood." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I believe in you. That's what matters." And softly, in front of the battered shop facade, he pressed his lips to hers, a brief, gentle kiss that was both comfort and promise. In the weeks that followed, the internal review at St. Clair Enterprises forced Warren to back off. Board members discovered enough questionable communications, emails hinting at nuisances to be removed, suspicious directives to city officials, that while none of it was a smoking gun of outright illegality, it was damning enough to tarnish his standing. Investors, uneasy about scandal, began subtly shifting support to Donovan's leadership. Knowing he was outmaneuvered, Warren retreated into a cold silence. Though never openly admitting wrongdoing, he ceased all attempts at sabotage. The father-son relationship remained fractured, but the power dynamic had unmistakably changed. Meanwhile, in the old district, Danica's shop received a wave of community support. Locals held a block party to celebrate her new sign installation, this time with even bigger, bolder lettering that read, "Rains and Blooms." Ramona live-streamed the unveiling on social media, racking up thousands of views from sympathetic onlookers. Donations covered more than the sign costs, allowing Danica to invest in a fresh coat of paint and new flower stands. When the day of the unveiling arrived, Donovan was there to hold Danica's hand as she cut a symbolic ribbon. The crowd cheered, neighbors clapped. A local newspaper snapped photos, running a heartwarming piece about resilience and unity. In every photograph, Donovan and Danica stood side by side, wearing smiles as bright as any bouquet in her shop. Later that night, once the festivities quieted and the old district streets lay calm under the glow of street lamps, Danica and Donovan strolled home together. His arm was slung loosely around her shoulders, hers around his waist. They walked in amiable silence, letting the hum of cicadas and distant city sounds fill the gaps. Finally, Danica spoke in a near whisper. "It feels like we went through a war, and somehow we're still here." He nodded, guiding her to a stop under a flickering lamppost. "That's how life is sometimes. You fight for what matters and come out stronger. And for me, what matters is you, and the place you call home." Her heart thumped at the quiet intensity in his voice. "I'm not used to letting someone fight my battles with me, but I'm glad it was you." She paused, inhaling. "So, where do we go from here?" Donovan's features softened. "We keep building, together. And yes, there'll be challenges. My father's not exactly warm and fuzzy now, but the board stands with me. The city sees you as a community hero of sorts." He chuckled at her startled expression. "And me? I just want to keep carrying crates of flowers for you while we figure out what the future looks like. Sound okay?" Tears pricked her eyes, but they were tears of contentment this time. She smiled, reaching up to frame his face with her hands. "That sounds more than okay. It sounds perfect." They leaned in, sharing a soft, lingering kiss beneath the lamppost's golden glow. In that tender collision of worlds, his domain of influence and her realm of simple truth, they found a harmony neither had believed possible. Yes, there were bound to be more storms ahead, but they would face them side by side, like two vines twisting around a sturdy trellis, supporting one another, blossoming under the same sky. And in that knowledge they found all the courage they needed to continue writing their story, one bloom at a time. If you enjoyed this story, don't miss the next one. Just click on the screen.